Retroactive claim anyway.
Okay.
Now, a few who recognize the fraud can actually have all of those sentences revisited and have them expunged. But then they also got a lot of suits. So they put the kind of a quandary. Because this can also spiral into multiple suits. Because they're going to have to compensate people for the time that they've been in prison. Because they're doing what you call this is what is called a de facto action, a de facto legislative action. So now to justify it, now, shouldn't they be put in the jail?
You would think.
Meaning that if some people got locked up for having half an ounce pack of this stuff, these are so-called, I say they are, so-called public servants. Now committing criminality, shouldn't they be in jail? Yes. And they talking about fields of it.
Yes. And
getting finance from it. What it simply is the unum sanctum policy, and then what is called the parentis principle. Parens parentis. Actually, it's parens parentis. This is where the corporate state claims to be the mother-father. But
I have a friend from years and years and years ago that under the 3-strike policy, who actually had an addiction, was addicted, and was what I would call, did low-level crime. You know how when you're addicted, they may rob somebody or something. Nobody got harmed, but under the 3 strikes, he was sentenced to life in prison here in the state of Delaware.
Yeah.
I researched his case online and pulled up all his attempts to file to have his sentence revisited, commuted, based on the fact that if he was addicted, he was never given treatment.
Yeah.
And they have refused.
Now, are we talking unum sanctum and doctrine of discovery? Because that the morality and ethics of the argument of the law was not really ever its root. Its root was to reduce and to attack the black families, to remove the males.
So-called black families.
Well, listen, the black families is not an identity, it's a caste.
Right.
It's a caste. And how do you do the genocide? Under the guise of government. Under the guise of government. They're not government. And then these people, 9 times out of 10, it is probably, and it's not a negative, I'm not knocking, I'm just saying, 9 times out of 10, he's probably a Smith, Jones, or Johnson. He's already their property. So that means he's been transacting business in their name. He has no standing in law in the first place. This is a side, this Dungy case is the perfect example of it. See, because one of the reasons why the Europeans branded the Moors was to make them non-heritable. This is another reason why I read this particular paragraph, because status and estate are equals. Let's go on with this, and so I think this can help answer some of the questions or some of the concept. Status is the standing, the state, or the condition of the person. It relates to the legal relation of the individual to the rest of the community. Status relates to the rights, the duties, the capacities, and to the incapacities which determine a person to a given class. It is a legal, personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties with which third parties and the state are concerned. And while the term status implies relation, it is not a mere relation. Status also means estate, because status signifies the condition or the circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property. Ancient and modern jurisprudence. Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Estate. Estate is the interest which one has in lands or in any other subject or property. An estate in lands tenements and hereditaments signify such interest as the tenant has therein. In this sense, estate, quote unquote, is constantly used in conveyances in connection with the words right, quote unquote, title, quote unquote, and interest, quote unquote, and is in a great degree synonymous with all of them, ancient and modern jurisprudence.
And the last
Give her the mic. Keep the mic.
I'm just giving you questions pop up. Comment has to do with
What do you think about the fact that the medical marijuana that they have now is seedless GMOs?
And again, it's part of the genocide operations. None of this stuff, see, this is the point. When you know what's going on, you're not, see, this is where the naivety comes in. Where the people are looking at these people as legitimate government, when they're Inquisition operatives. And so when you're looking at the GMO is military operations. The Food and Drug Administration is a military platform. The church is a military platform. And these people keep thinking it's something else. This is why we're giving them documentation. You know why? If you sit and have a general conversation with people talking this information, they think it's what a lot of people say, that's that Moorish stuff. Or that's that Moor's opinion. Or Taj guy is saying that stuff. He's making that stuff up. This is their own documents. You know, and so the deal of it is, they're depending on, one, that these people don't read anymore. They're scared of books. They'll invest in $150 sneaks before they'll invest in a $10 book. Right. They will buy a pack of weed or blunt that's been laced to alter their brainwave before they'll eat good food or even buy a book that tells them the herbs that are good for them in the woods that they keep poisoning with Roundup, which is actually cancer causing. You know, all of this kind of stuff. This stuff is amazing, amazing, amazing. And this is another reason why a lot of times there's certain documents that I'll go to in the lecture, because people you even have trolls, that they pay trolls, even on our side. You know, people that some alleged conscious Moors and other so-called black leader guys that are paid to go out to try to discredit what we're doing. Their purpose is to dissuade the people from looking at facts or get caught up in emotions of the personalities. Are we clear?
Clear.
And so you go to documentation because you already know that there's going to be a counter operation. You don't guess it, you're supposed to already know that it is. You know, so you don't act surprised and you don't sit around arguing or engaging in them. What you do is get the work done and try to get this information to people who do not know. Because the people's absence of information is where the damage is. The bull, this dragon only lives because the people are sluggish. They have a sluggish will, they're asleep, and they're lethargic, and they think they have religion, they think they have money, and they think they have law, and they have neither. And you can't tell them anything because their beliefs, not their knowledge, their beliefs are strong. Their faith, fiat, is strong. And they're being played. You know, and so when you start talking facts and documents and records, most of them ain't interested. It's going to take too much time to work with this. They're lazy. And this is bad, and they're trained to be lazy. And then they're trained to be anti-books. Because books, you know, you're talking books and stuff like that, you're talking anti-Jesus. You're just supposed to have blind faith. Believe what Rev told you. You know, even though they see them badges on cars in the favorite parking area. Meanwhile, Rev talking against masonry and astrology, and they got them badges right on the car. You see them mothers and matrons of the church got them Eastern Star badges on with the 5 points on it, with roof and everything on it.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
another question.
Give her the mic.
The question is,
Before the Republic was set up, were tribes, Northgate, in treaty with Great Britain explaining the drop-off of Europeans. but I understand the British Crown has mulatto blood.
Yeah, this is the reason why, like for instance, when you go into world diplomatic records, while they'll hide pictures of George III, Queen Charlotte, you'll see true scholars, real scholars, say like Joel A. Rogers, as an example, who will go into European history and show you the family crest of a lot of these Europeans, and all of them have Moors in their crest. And then you'll see these so-called black leaders run around and act like they don't know who Moors are, or like they never heard of it. They'll even talk about Columbus's voyage and the fall of the Red House, which is the Alhambra, and Colombo's voyage, and Da Gama, and all of them trying to overcome the Moors. And they merged their kingdoms, and after Isabella and Ferdinand married, then Al-Andalusia was called Spain thereafter. And they'll tell in all European history that the Europeans were not able to come to the Western Hemisphere until Queen Isabella, King Ferdinand merged their kingdoms and defeated the Moors. And then they were able to come into the Western Hemisphere. And then these so-called paid-off black leaders talk about they don't know who the Moors are. And like they're not Moors. These are called by the Europeans, write this down, Moriscos and Conversos. And do the research, and the Europeans will tell you who these so-called black people are. They're traitor Moors. This is why they will not acknowledge their Moorish bloodline, because they were paid off to tell these people that they were people of color and black people and Negroes, which means monkey, because they know these people can't read. And once they get our people to agree to that 14th Amendment, that's that 14th Amendment person, etc., and the hiding of the nobility clause, the 13th, they call it the 1320. That's the original nobility clause of the organic Constitution, with its 20 sections. All right, and this is where you see the barristers of England cannot hold an office in the United States. And this is why you see in Obama, when Obama went to Egypt, he exposed that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. And then he shows you the true American flag. And when you seen Hillary speak from the Ben Franklin room, showing you the real American flag, after that Benghazi incident. And then you'll see them not published or just suppress the history of the iftar dinners that are held at the palace, particularly like one held by Thomas Jefferson, who you knew was a minister plenipotentiary with the formation, negotiation of the treaty, the world's oldest treaty that Obama was talking about. And he'll talk about the agreement of 1790. And he's talking about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And that's the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States. And you'll see that Thomas Jefferson, 1805, at iftar dinner with the Moroccan ambassador from Tunis. And that tradition has been maintained secretly and sometimes open, even up to the Clinton administration. And you see, because of the dynamics of the Khazarians, of the families in Saudi Arabia, who are really not Muslims, most of them are Satan worshippers, who were set up in there by the British Crown to upset that whole area. And now that they've been secretly trying to make around the corner agreements with China, etc., because they know the old Silk Road is going to be reestablished and the world is not buying them UST bonds, you'll see those rifts going on. Once you understand a lot of this background that we're talking about, you understand the politics, the world politics. It's all of it is based on the Unum Sanctum Bulla, the regulation and management and administration of the world global estates or global trust run by the Jesuits with the law of the finance and the false counterfeit instruments pushed around the world from Westminster, District of London, Central District, and the enforcement of the Unum Sanctum Dum Diversas Sister QV Trust Act of 1666, 1666, enforced by the United States Service Corporation, pretending to be a country since 1861, Washington, D.C. All of them are sovereign city states, Trinity operations of the Inquisition that didn't end. And this is actually the politics and what's going on, which is again why we emphasize when we opened up this class, the acceptance and acknowledgement of your estate. Because it's all hypothecated. And if you comprehend what we've been telling you, most of the questions you would answer yourself. But it's good that they ask the questions because it gives people who don't really kind of understand this or comprehend this a view to look at this. You know, because you're going to have to keep beating the people with this because they have to be purged. They must be cleansed. They must be baptized. They must be reborn with a new mind, not a new body, with a new mind, because their concepts are all wrong. Doesn't mean that they're dumb. They lack information.
True.
Yes? Anything else? All right. So again, some of these things that you'll see us in the process of answering certain questions, we'll go back to things that we've gone over with them at different times. And this is why this is important. People who have been trained in belief systems have a tendency, when problems are presented, to keep making things up or talking about versions. Truth does not come in versions. It does not change or pass away.
That's right.
This is why certain fundamental things we will go to bring them back to a proper state of mind. This is another reason why I started sharing the Dungy case, to put people in a state of mind of their forefathers so they can understand the thought patterns then that do not exist now because they lack this information. This is what makes even the Dungy case important to understand, like many of the youth who don't have too much reference point, you know, anybody say below 45 or something like that. They may have heard, but they didn't understand really why, if you used to call our people black or Negro, you had a fight. But they knew it took place, and they hear about it, but they can't relate to it. They have no reference. That's why I took them back to the 1800s to show them why you had a fight. Because they're stealing your birthright. If you come under the black coat, they can steal all your property. It's called a sheep. Now our people just think it's Afrocentricity. And that means the carbon hotep of the universe. And they're proud. But they just say they're proud of being a serf. And that's an agreement. You see, and so this is again, but they'll say, hey, don't hide it. It is always said, and it is not an unknown factor, that culture is in the language. And then these people use connotative linguistics trying to be free. They don't go together. Allodial and feudal are opposites. The United States Republic is based on allodial and allodium recognition under constitutions and treaties. The U.S. democracy is an absolute feudal platform established since 1861. It's documented. That's why we went to the congressional records. And this is why a lot of times we'll go to House Joint Resolution 192 so that a thinking person can recognize the correlation. Jubilee starts the old Canaanite Temple, 1913. Woodrow Wilson converts all the allodial titles, thank you sis, all the allodial titles to mortgages and deeds, 1913. Now you ask all these people that know Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad about a allodial title, and they won't even know what you're talking about. We're talking contemporary. Then 1925, Drawley set up, registered the Moorish Holy Temple of Science as a civic organization, which teaches government. Then he tells people, and it's documented, Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a forerunner, and he taught absolute government and civics. And then these people turn around and say they was just teaching beliefs and don't know civics, which makes them incompetent. Do you understand? Then, 1925, to counter Noble Drawley, they re-registered the United States Service Corporation in Florida and in New York, which I've given you all the documents of their corporate operations. Then in 1933, crashed anyway. In 1933, then in 1929, they got rid of Drawley. 1933, it crashed anyway. And then they re-registered in Puerto Rico. That's under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And then they start bonding these people's birth certificates because all of their bonds were dead. Even if you look dates and you look at the congressional records, you can see the sequence, you can see the correlations. And all scholars know this stuff. And we show these things because we need people for themselves to start thinking again.
Yeah.
You know, not accept what we're saying, just look at what we're saying. Just look at it. And then do some reference research. Because what will occur, not only will half the questions that are asked not be asked, instead of asking questions, they'll be sharing new information.
Islam.
And it's not that we don't have other information. It's just that the forum keeps us in a certain area to help develop people. As they develop, we could take them further, but there's no need to give them more carts when they don't know where the horse goes, if you get the whole point. And so what we're trying to do is honestly get our people enough information where they can stop feeling subject or intimidated. That this is their birthright like it is ours. See, a lot of times people have a tendency to, our people have been trained to this followership mentality so long that, like I'll talk to people from around the country, and some people out off the land in other countries, and they'll say things to me like, oh, I've been following you on YouTube, and blah, blah, blah. I said, don't follow me. Don't follow nobody. Take what I say and prove it wrong. And meet your master. Your master is self. We're just sharing information so that we can get people thinking allodial together and start getting some things done to leave a clean platform for the coming generations who have been constantly deceived by their parents with belief systems that are actually coming from Rome, and they've been lying on Jesus and lying on Muhammad. You know, but it can't be because I say so. It must be because you now know so. And once you know so, now you're on your path to liberation.
Islam.
A question, I don't know if you can answer.
Go ahead.
It's kind of lengthy, but I'll just.
But that's go ahead, fine.
The question is, can you please discuss the issues of, this is why I just think it may take some time, 1, group economics, 2, aggregation, removing in public and private, and 4, how to properly set up viable business as a Moorish national.
All right, now, number 1. When we went to House Joint Resolution 192, it must be already comprehended that all rights, properties, liberties, etc. have already been hypothecated. The answer would be what we opened up with, a claim of your estate. Any business is already hypothecated. So if you know that, then you should be thinking along the order, what must we start doing to start securing that business which is already hypothecated? You see where I'm coming from? See, so the concept is not to start doing things, to recognize that it should already be done. So the business that we should be about in our communities, with all, and understand this, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just identifying. Are we clear?
Clear.
The Moorish Science Temple of America was set up to take care of these matters. If you study the history, the structure, what Drawley did, structure, look at the bylaws, Constitution and bylaws on the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's already in place to have taken care of these things. We won't argue whether or not it's been done or not. It's clear that it has not been done. So we don't need to talk about the infiltration and all this stuff. We're not even going to go there. The deal is we're trying to give information to people to start saving themselves, since those who were put in place in authority to carry out their duties have breached their trust. And people have a tendency to not identify themselves by their pedigree or their bloodline. They've been identifying themselves by the clubs that they belong to, by the organizations that they belong to, not knowing that that's a wrong concept.
Yes.
It does not mean that don't mean you dismiss the churches, mosques, synagogues, temples that you belong to. They are vehicles or instrument for learning, but they are not the estate nor your pedigree. Not to be confused. Are we clear?
Islam.
When you look at people around Earth planet, when they travel other parts of the world, they do not deny their pedigree. For instance, like, they may have different so-called religions. Like you might have, I've talked to people who are Buddhists, Confucianists, Muslim, Sikhs, etc. And I'm talking about direct conversations. And now, but if you want to talk about their nationality, all three of them you can find in China. And in Hindustan, Sindh, what we call India. But when they go into the world, they are Sindh, or what you call Hindustan. Here in the north, to get along with the Europeans to do business, they'll go along with the Indian brand that they know is not who they are. But when they buy and sell, they're Hindustani. Even if they don't like each other. The unity of humanity on earth is their nativity. The nativity is called the honor of their mothers and fathers, their heritability, their capacity to inherit. That nativity is called nationality all over the world. The only people that continue to violate that is the people in North America that thinks human beings are crayons and insist on claiming to be black. And then when the black codes are enforced, they want to talk about we need unity. It will never happen, because the unity is the recognition of your nativity. That reverts to your heritability. That's why they call heritability inheritance. And these are simplicities that need to be taught. But before these people can accept it, they must know the history, because they will not dump that paradigm until they know the function of things. This is why certain things must be redundantly taught, because they keep reverting back to their rat training. The rat training is the systematic mind control system set up by the Jesuit order, and the connotative linguistics, which is commonly called hood language. You know, and so immediately when we start reverting to the hood language, thinking it means Ebonics, it was really set up by the priesthood to keep the status quo of what is called the serf caste. And the serf caste is connotatively referred to as the slave caste. All right? And that's why it is loosely equated with so-called black culture. Because it's actually a mind control system. And then to keep them in that status, they needed overseers to convince them to be 14th Amendment Negro people, U.S. citizens, not knowing its stock. That's why it's promoted as a identity when they know it's a nom de guerre. This is another reason why I took you to the Dungy case, to show you in context what it actually means, how it actually functions, and why it's important to nationalize. Meaning that if you didn't give people documents and take them back into law and history and show that to go together, they'll think it's just a mere opinion, or that you're trying to convert them out of their salvation religion. Even though they're catching all the hell in the world, they think they're saved. The babies are dying younger and younger on the street, but they're saved. Their families are all broke up. Oh, but they're saved. Can't maintain personal relationships. Oh, but they're saved. IRS takes all of their stuff, but they're saved. No, they're full of stuff, and they need to be pulled to the table and stop selling out the next generation. which is why we're here at the House of Reawakening Minds. And why we also appreciate you, even being injured, smiling with your beautiful smile like you've always done, in pain, sheltering your pain, etc., to make sure that this information gets to the people, and you're appreciated.
Islam.
And welcome home, too.
Islam.
And welcome back.
Islam. And get away.
And again, and as we go over these lessons, we'll go into different aspects of the estate and revert back to certain documentation to give people support. See, because when they have, this is why also when people come to the House of Reawakening Minds, we will freely give them the information on the flash drive so they can have reference points. Because it leaves no doubt what's going on. Meaning there's a lot more that can be told. But we put enough on that flash drive, keep them busy for 10 years. And if they pay attention to it, we're giving them documents where these people are telling you themselves what they're doing to you. See, so they don't have to, just because we're talking these things, it's sort of like a lot of conscious Moors are exposing this information, and people have a tendency, therefore, to think it is our information exclusive to others. Everybody knows this stuff but us. We're the cards and don't know that we're in the game. Yeah, we're being played and talking about, well, I ain't into that. Well, you're the card that just like, you don't get, we don't get it. And I can like comprehend it. So we have to try to, and like I said, and like we were talking before, when I'm communicating with people, I don't try to convince them of anything. I go to their own documents and then explain the history and the politics around the documents so that anybody, even a child, can see it. If you can get them to stop believing and just pay attention to the facts. And once they start doing that, they themselves will purge. But one of the things, and I do comprehend and understand it, people are uncomfortable when they discover that they've been played all their lives. And then a lot of people who they've trusted, when they have to think in the back of their mind, this sucker knew this stuff all the time and didn't tell me. And been taking $5 from me, making me thinking that Jesus got a bank account at Chase Manhattan.
Yep.
So he was down at the Bahamas with Bertha Buck. Sings with the choir, with Jesus' hair.
Yep.
You know, then they're going to take time for them to purge themselves of their naivety. They're going to get angry first. Don't get angry. Remember, you agreed to this, so therefore you're part of it. Take responsibility and understand in reality what the Kabbalistic phrase means when it says every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. In a basic word in civics, that would be called nationalization. That means acknowledge your nativity, acknowledge your mother. You have no inheritance because you don't acknowledge your mother, because that's where your inheritance comes from. This is why in all your secret societies, they will give the lesson of Ruth the Moabitess and why that's common, and then people don't make the relationship. They know that Ruth was Yahshua's great-great-grandmother, and they know that they modified his name at the Nicene Council and then called him Zeus, the Roman god, Jesus, Jesus. That is the code word and password. And that the people are really worshiping the Roman god Zeus via Constantine and not Yahushua, who's really the prophet, whose name the popes of Rome altered after they murdered him. You know, the same Jesus that they talk about they love. So the hypocrisy goes on to the extreme. And because people are sensitive, you can't come at them like that. You don't try to convert them. Give them their own documents. Get them in the habit of going to the record. Then they can't charge you anymore. Because as long as they think it's a belief, they can dismiss. Or they use it as an excuse to dismiss. But once you show them the documents, now they're caught. They can either honor their mothers and fathers, or they don't have to. But there's a price to it. Problem is that they're paying the price now dearly. And then a lot of people are getting confused and they need to be rescued. but they must rescue themselves.
Islam.
They must rescue themselves because it's their duty and their responsibility to do this work just like it is ours. Just because we may make some sacrifices of our personal lives to get this information to people, it is not our information, it is your birthright upon which we're discussing these issues.
Islam.
And that must be clear to everyone listening.
Yes, Islam.
However, we will gladly answer whatever questions we can. But you must start to answering them yourself.
That's right.
Because this is also in the book that they say they believe in, where it says, I hold my hand out all the day long to a hard-hearted and rebellious people who are not called by my name. When they repent from their sinful ways, I will heal their land. L-A-N-D. So let's go in that Dungy case and go look at land. There's cheap, realty, and there's black that they've been calling themselves. And with that claiming of the estate, excuse me, this is the status of the people. And this is what's been going on. Estate left vacant and without there being anyone in existence able to make a claim thereto. Now, with the brand system, such persons are called wards of the state. Now, a ward of a state is not heritable in law, unless that person, he or she, comes out of that wardship status. If they fail to come out of the wardship status, there too they remain. And the state logically operatives, because the operatives are hiding behind the LLC of the state to actually rob people. So people are talking about the state entity instead of the persons who are operating it. And so by default, as trustees, they're reaping the benefit because the heir is denied it because the heir consistently shows constitutional inferiority because they won't enforce the Constitution. Therefore, the corporate state operatives are constantly using our estate. This is why they continuously create what you call bond derivatives on top of the bond derivatives, fractionalize it. And this is so they're dealing with resources via the estate. They're not dealing with money. So they can get you to argue money, you just made an incompetent argument. Because you're not really dealing with money, and you're not allowed to have money. And because it's private commercial papers for bookkeeping purposes, when you transfer it without qualification, you're actually dealing a debt note, and it's actually private. So they have right to claim it or to what? Tax it. Because it isn't money, it's private commercial paper. So if you don't state it when you convert with it, then they take and they discharge on your behalf the alleged debt. It's a set-off. It doesn't disappear. It's discharged. Are we clear?
Clear.
Means it doesn't disappear, it accumulates. So, and this is back to where you claim your estate and you claim the United States operatives and their obligations as trustees to clear the debt that's actually their own. This is why they continue to set up instruments by which they try to imply or get the people to agree to be U.S. citizens, not knowing that they're saying they're stock options. Now, whenever, and this is important for listeners to really understand, whenever the word citizen is used in actual process, not in true definition, but in process, it's equated with nationality. So when you say citizen, you're saying nation state. However, if you don't name the nation state, you're still in the middle of the sea. And then they can hypothecate you under sea piracy. Piracy on the land is actually called privateering. So when you hear privateering, the Barristers Association is actually being privateers. They're actually land pirates. So what they're doing on the rule of booty and prize, they're taking advantage of so-called black people. This is the reason why, when so-called black people come to court, they can tell you to shut up. And then people say, I'm representing myself. And they say, you can't. Because you just said you're a cardboard. So cardboard can't speak. Because that's a representation. Because a free man or woman presents themselves. So all these little subtleties we know that people need to comprehend. And so we do the best that we can by bringing new pieces of information and then tying it to establish things so that people can start making correlations. Because as they make correlations, they start purging, they start comprehending what's really going on. Because the issue is, this is what the real issue is. We know that our people have pride, they have a sense of dignity, although in truth, most of them don't qualify for it, but they still have it, and their ego is in front. So they don't want nobody to remind them that they're running around the real world with training wheels. With the rest of the world is riding 10 speeds, and we still got tricycle training wheels, and we don't want nobody to look at that we got training wheels. And we never win the race, because we run around training wheels. We're here to try to get the people qualified to take off them training wheels, and disallowing them to continue to promote their own ignorance. And trying to get past their egos, because they try to protect their image of their clubs and all of this stuff that's been injuring them to death. Knowing that their leader guys know this information. Knowing that they don't know that these people are trolls that keep trying to counter this information. You understand? And that when it really boils down, that you yourself must be able to defend your position. So how do you defend what you do not know? So this is again why, while we're giving some of this information, we'll go to documents, and certain documents we'll go over redundantly, because the people will start recognizing the correlation.
I just got, believe it or not, because you've been coming here since 2011, and some things it's probably taken me 3-4 years or more to get. But the Dungy case, you've been maybe in the last several months going over that, and today the light bulb went on about the significance of it, because I realized that while William Dungy skin was dark, it was not the color of his skin that was an issue.
It's the legal status.
It's the legal status. It finally clicked to me why that case is so significant.
Yes, and there's also why we give support with both escheat, land, estate, hereditaments, status in the state, because that's actually what the argument is. But when you know, and which you do know, and we all know, that our people don't know that law and history goes together. They're not taught that. But we do know that scholars, teachers, and people who belong to what you call Masonic orders are given the sovereign knowledge of government. Masonry really is government, if you understand. And a preservation of the ancient knowledge of the ancient ones, which is our culture, that our people keep dismissing like it's some kind of club, fraternal order belief that has nothing to do with us. It has every damn thing to do with you. Do you understand? They are given limited degrees, but they're given enough to recognize that the masses are civil little mortus, or what you call dead in the view of law, and don't even know that they're dead. And they deal with beliefs instead of facts. You understand? So Masonry is a way that Renaissance men have preserved a lot of the ancient knowledge. And you can grow in it, meaning that you don't have to be limited, but it gives you enough to begin to liberate you. That's why it's called free Masonry, if you understand, because you're actually being liberated. But at the same time, with many people who are even Masons and Eastern Stars will condemn it publicly to keep the dummies from examining it. Because what will happen when they start making correlations, they start recognizing the institutions they belong to are clandestine. They're frauds. And that the masses are under mind control. They think they know the Lord and Jesus. They don't know that they're worshiping the Lords of London. They think it's Lords in heaven of God of Jesusness. It's the Lords of London. You understand? And even most of these guys that are under the black codes that come in masonry are controlled by the Grand Lodge of London. You know, even they are being hoodwinked. You know, this is why Diwali had to pull the wool off all of them, if you understand. Because it is your knowledge, but it still must be cleaned up. This is why, like, a lot of, Masons from around the world, or Knights Templars, or people who really understand this, will call Masons who continue to call themselves black, call them clandestine. One of the first lessons they get, they come in them orders is root them all biters. And then they come out, still claim to be black, they're clandestine. She's a Moabite and so are they. You know, but anyway. Peace, Islam, peace, bro. And so once you understand the real history, a lot of things you're not offended by, you look at them differently. And one of the major things is to get over yourself. Get over your ego. Get humble. It doesn't mean be carpet for anyone, but humble yourself and look at things. An intelligent man or woman can look at information objectively without necessarily accepting it, but will measure it by merit. And the merit will always be what you call maxims of law. Because the maxims of law are hermetic in their character, which means they are universal. And they're divinely proven true. And so when people belong to secret societies like Masonry or something like that, they're really given what you call hermetic foundation. Some people come there to get drunk and party, and some people come there to raise or to learn. How you come, no matter which side of that compass that you come on, you come to really set a true foundation underneath yourself of what's really going on the planet. This is also why a lot of people that are Masons can't actually talk to some of the people that are caught in beliefs. It's not that they're just hiding things from them, it's just that you're talking logic to people who have the mentality of boys and girls. And it's almost like they'll get mad at you. Because they know the Lord and you don't type thing. They worship the Lords of London. They lying on Jesus, they worshiping Constantine. You tell them they ain't Christians, they think you're attacking Jesus, God, and Lord, and heavens, and everything, and you got demons. They don't even know the official name of the claim that they're making. And so you say Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, they look at you cross-eyed like you don't know what you're talking about, and that's exactly what they themselves are claiming. That's again why I say give them the documents, don't try to convince them. Give them their own stuff. And if they still claim that after that, they're either demon themselves, they're Satanists, you understand, or they're really a COINTELPRO operatives, or the very Romans that murder all the prophets, which they absolutely are anyway. It's just that they may not know that they're siding with them. But them heads behind that pulpit know exactly who they're working for. That's why I take you to the congressional records, show you their real oath to the Pope. You know, so you got things like this. This is what begins to liberate the people, because they can't keep blaming, they can't charge you like you're attacking their belief. No, you're giving them their own damn documents. That's what you're doing. Those who know, they expect you to get it, because most people don't get this information until they get their highest degrees of masonry. And we're giving it to the people freely, without riddle, without game, without trick. Front up. Taking them far beyond 33 degrees. Freely. Some don't appreciate it, some do. However, it lays a foundation for the liberation of the generations to come, if they would but hear. And so it says, whosoever will, let them hear. Whosoever will, let them come. So be it. Welcome to the house of reawakening minds.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Islam. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
There have been a few on here asking, as we close out, how to get in touch with you, or what's the process to get you to come to their city and so forth. I mean, I know you get
They can talk to
invitations.
you and we'll talk.
Okay, so I did tell them that they contact me. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, basically, yeah.
Yes.
So you can just inbox me, Naila Gilliam, if you're interested in having Brother Taj come to your city or your venue, and we'll make sure that the connection is made. And thank you for listening.
Islam.
Yes, and thank you for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. And also remind you all, we already know that half these people buy Gucci belts even though they're knockoffs. And Michael Jordan's for 150 and stuff like that. But understand, Dr. Naila has been honestly struggling to maintain this venue for people around the country to get this information, which is given freely. And of course, you all know that she had an accident put upon her. And she come over here in pain, with that smile still on her face, and the brothers assisting her, and to keep these things going. So make sure, instead of buying that pack of cancer sticks, send it here to make sure the house stays open for Dr. Naila. And you know how I roll. I don't be asking people for fiat. I don't play that game. However, serving is worthy of our hire.
Yes.
Keep the House of Reawakening Minds open. Support that which supports you.
Islam.
Again, welcome to the House of Reawakening Minds. Trust that we shared some things that will help you and help you help others. Because remember, to help yourself, help someone that does not know. The best way from a divine principle to rescue yourself is to rescue another. So please pay attention to the details, learn it deeply, and then share it.
Islam.
And when you liberate someone else, you liberated yourself. And you put another nail in the coffin of the vampire, which we're all trying to bury.
Stop them bullies.
Peace and good night.
Peace, Taj. I text you